Social isolation still is one of the founding principles of Tech for Senior. There was a picture that they showed often. It's a husband, wife with two children standing in front of a senior center looking up, and in the window you can see grandma in a rocking chair looking down at them with a tear coming down her eye because she hasn't had any interaction with them for 6 months. That's social isolation. Now, you understand it and I understand it, that I can pick up an iPhone and with one button I can talk to Brooke. Not only can I talk to Brooke, but I can see you, and it's free. No matter where you are in the whole world, why would somebody be in that situation where they can't talk to their loved ones? It's because they don't have the technology. They don't understand it. So one of the things that we talk about a lot at Tech for Senior is, in order to prevent social isolation as a senior, you need to understand what your family uses as technology. And it's not difficult because you can program it so it's just one button on the phone. Hit that button and you can talk to your kids or grandkids.
And thank you again for joining me on today's podcast. It's great to have you here. You're actually the second person that I'm interviewing for the series. So it's basically, I'm learning all these new things here. So I'm also getting familiar with technology as I am starting this, which is really interesting. But let me go ahead and start with an introduction so that the listeners of the podcast can know a little bit about yourself. So Ron Brown, who's here with me today, he started as a flight surgeon before transitioning into family practice in British Columbia. But what set him apart was his early adoption of technology and healthcare. He invested in a startup software company specializing in electronic patient records, helping it grow into an international success. And after retiring, he didn't slow down. Instead, he launched Tech for Senior, which is a growing community and educational hub that helps older adults navigate the digital world. With a website, Facebook page, over 11,000 YouTube subscribers, and a podcast and 2 weekly shows, he's proving that retirement can be just the beginning of an exciting new chapter. Today, we'll dive into his journey, the evolution of tech and healthcare, and how seniors can embrace digital tools with confidence. Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I guess we can start off maybe with a little bit of your early career, what happened in your journey. And I know you started off as a flight surgeon and then later started a family practice. But I guess if you can go back and talk about maybe what initially sparked your interest in tech and then what brought you later into your career until the electronic patient records industry, that would be good to start with.
Well, I'm an old guy now. Many years ago, I was a young guy, right? and I think I told you I was born and raised in Edmonton, and I went right through high school and right into medical school. So I graduated when I was very, very young at age 22, right, as a doctor. So things were different, but that's back in, I graduated in 1976, right? So this is a long time ago. So I went through, and so I graduated very early on in my career, and part of it was the fun as I joined the military and went through their medical officer training program. And so I got to do some cool stuff, graduated and traveled around, and I was a flight surgeon, did crash investigation work and all sorts of cool stuff, but ended up in Comox on Vancouver Island. But I don't want to talk too much about that because it's utopia and we don't want anybody else here, right? So it is a great spot to be. And so I did wind up here. And in 1981, after being in the military for about 4 years, not much was happening in 1981 in the military, and most people got out. And so I decided to leave. And so I thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to build a medical clinic, hire some doctors, and get on with life and get a business going here and go on. So I did. I got out and I started to build a big clinic, and lo and behold, now you got to remember, this is in 1981 when PCs had just come out. They weren't, maybe, I don't even think we had Windows on them yet. You know, if it was Windows 1. They didn't communicate. We're talking about some really basic technology here. And I thought, what a cool idea, and why shouldn't we be able to use this technology in this new clinic, this new ultra modern clinic I was building? Why can't we use that? And I was trying to figure that out, and lo and behold, a salesman came by and said, hey, we have a product that you might be interested in. And he talked to me about it. And it actually was a software company in Calgary that had just started up, and it was run on a Unix machine, not on a Windows machine. And I thought it was really interesting because it did exactly what I wanted. So I flew to Calgary, met with the president of the company, Dennis, and we still are good friends. We bought a house together in Arizona, so we still are very good friends. And I bought part of the company, right? So I bought part of the company and said, yes, I agree with this, but I want to buy part of the company. I thought this would be interesting, and so we built the clinic, put the system in, and started my journey on technology. And that's really where medicine and technology got together, and we grew the company in Calgary to a national company, and we were in every province except Quebec. And then we bought, it was called Clinicare, and then we bought another company in the United States called ChartCare in Seattle, and we moved the company as an international company. So I spent 20 years in electronics, in electronic patient records. Really, that's what we provided, was electronic patient records to clinics. And while it's common now, everybody does it, it's not a big deal, but it was a big deal before we had PCs, right? It was a big deal. So
Right.
we were the very first to do it in Canada. We developed lab interfaces, electronic data transfers, all the things that you would require, and we did that. So my life was, yes, it was a doctor, it was a physician. I delivered babies, I worked in emergency, I did all that sort of stuff. But I was also a father with two daughters, and also running this big company, helping to run this big company, and traveling across Canada and the United States a lot. And so my life was very busy. And that's how it really got started on this whole technology issue. And that's what happened. And then after the kids grew up, they both are successful and on their own careers now. I retired at age 55. I thought I'd worked so hard in between 22 and 55. I decided to retire, so I did. And my wife and I, we kept our house big. We have a very nice house, and we kept our house. And I bought a big fifth wheel and truck, and we traveled for 2 years across the United States and across Canada. Went to Newfoundland for a couple of months. Did all sorts of things. Traveled around in our RV, and ended up in Mesa, Arizona, where we met some friends of ours, and we decided to buy a house there and live in a resort in Arizona. So I sold the fifth wheel, and we ended up in Arizona. So that's sort of, in a nutshell, my life and how it all worked. So that's my interest in technology. But what happened was very interesting, is I thought I would be happy in Mesa, and I would go. Everyone golfed, right? Do you golf? Everybody
definitely not. No.
Everybody golfs, right? And I thought, this would be great. I'll learn how to golf, and then I'll live happily ever after. And that didn't work out so well for me. I wasn't a very good golfer, and I never had it. Whenever I came back from a game, I found it more of a frustrating experience than a happy experience. So my wife, I did something. My wife, I always do what she tells me, right? But she said, Ron, do not go to the computer club in this resort, or you will be back into technology like Flint, right? And so I did go against it, because I said, I just can't do this golf anymore. So I went over there, and I quickly became the president, the program director. Then there's a whole bunch of computer clubs in the East Valley of Mesa, and we organized all those and created a organization called the East Valley Association of Computer Clubs. Guess who was president of that? And so the technology thing just blossomed, and that's where we went. And then of course what happened was COVID, and COVID changed the world as we knew. And so we and that's the start of the story. So do you want me to keep going, or do you have some other?
I have so many questions, like, just from all that information. Like, my
Sure, go
first
ahead.
question
Sure.
is, it's so interesting to see how, like, you didn't go to school for tech, but you ended up going right into tech, like, after school, after medicine. So
Look, there was
it's
no such thing as tech in mind. There was no, like,
yeah.
the only people that ever had anything to do with computers were those people that had, I don't know if there's cards, they're called programming cards. And you take these cards and you punch holes in them, and that creates the software. And then you feed this into a computer, and it makes the software run. That's how it was done way before your time, right? And that's the
Right.
only thing there really was in the university. Nobody had computers at home. They just, that it wasn't some. This is before that.
Were there any people like that inspired you? Like I'm not sure if like Bill Gates or like the like Apple CEO, like if any of those people.
Well, all that came along as I was going through the process of with our company for sure. Right when I built the first clinic, this whole thing started. Right, there was certainly Microsoft initially, and then there was Apple, and the whole concept of a PC came along, and the advantages in what you could use a PC before. But before that, if you wanted to network anything and you wanted to keep the systems, you really had to have sort of a mainframe computer, one of those big boxes, and you had to have dumb terminals off it running, and you had to have something. It wasn't like you could just have a PC at home. That didn't exist. And that's the time, excuse me, that's the time when I was starting, right? So I started before, and that's why it was so interesting, because of course, uh, as we sold our product across the Canada and the United States, nobody had ever heard of electronic patient records. Now today you're going to ask me and say, Ron, come on now. I go to my doctor. It's an electronic patient. Right? Everybody's got electronic. Well, not back then. We had the very first company in Canada that did it, and so it turned out to be a pretty good thing as we moved ahead.
So you guys essentially like pioneered it across North America?
Well, and I talked through the United States. I was at a lot of conferences talking about what we were doing and how it was doing. We did some pretty interesting things. The other thing we did was, as you probably know, part of an electronic record is lab. You go to the blood, you have a blood test, and you have a blood sugar done. You have a hemoglobin done. You have a blood test done. Well, that information is created in a lab, and the results are created in a lab, and it somehow has to get back to the office, right? In other words, the doctor's office. And that, usually meant printing out a piece of paper and sending it over to the office. Well, we developed the system where you could actually send it electronically, right? It actually went
Right.
right from the lab over back to the doctor's office. It was assimilated into the record. It was sent to the doctor for review, and it was tracked and then filed in electronically in the patient record. That has never that was totally brand new, and we were the first people to do that, and we did that first in British Columbia.
That must have been really exciting to be a part of something basically something completely new that's never been done before. I think as like somebody who's an entrepreneur, you're always trying to think of the next new thing. And that definitely seems like you guys were on that adventure. So really cool to hear that part of your story. And I just want to speak a little bit about like, I'm not sure if you would know the answer to this, but I was having a conversation with somebody in IT the other month, and we were just fascinated by the fact that, all our records are logged in electronically at each clinic, at each office. But it's kind of surprising to us that they're not all connected to each other, and that there's no like one big database that kind of holds it, so that if you go to like this clinic or this clinic, that information would be like contained in one secure place. But I don't know, as somebody, I don't know if you know if you're in that industry, but would you know why that's the case, or is this something like completely out of that
No,
field?
no, no. That's very very interesting, and so true, right? So let me tell you, a little bit depends on what country you're in. A little bit different if you're in the United States versus in Canada. So I'm going to maybe make my comments mostly to the
Sure.
Canadian folks, okay? Because medicine's it's quite a bit different between the two countries. But you live in Toronto? I can't remember. Is
Yeah.
it Toronto? Yeah. Okay. So a medical record comprises probably three things. It comprises X-ray, right? Like you'd probably go and have an X-ray or something like that, and that would
Mhm.
be comprised. The doctor might order some blood work, so you have a lab component, right? If you go to
Mhm.
the lab, you have some blood tests done. And then there's, of course, the doctor's records, which is on his computer in his office, right? So
Mhm.
you're going to go to another location for an X-ray and another location for a lab, and maybe the X-rays in the hospital, maybe the labs, at a regional lab down the street. So you're going to different places to get these done, and they've all got to come back to the doctor and be put in his record, right?
Mhm.
So let's deal with X-rays first. Probably the earliest adoption of electronic patient information is with radiology. Radiology was, particularly with CT scans and the digitalization of X-rays, it became very early on. It was totally digital, which means you can access that wherever you are in the world. So if you have an X-ray done at a local hospital, I could see it from Comox, wherever you are in the world. It's just a matter of logging into the system and the report and the X-rays there, right?
Okay.
Now, so then if you go to the lab, then the lab creates, does the blood test they want, and that information is sent back to the doctor, but also it is available on that lab system. The system in that lab may be a regional lab that may be related to the hospital, but that all now is online, right? So you log into the lab, you can simply see the results. And in here in our area, patients can actually log in and see their results, right? They can actually follow this along. So it's gone more than just doctors doing it. You know, now patients can access it. So that's in a lab. So then we come back to the doctor's office, where yes, the doctors have notes in their office, but that's in their office. And if you are somewhere else, you can't see that information. Brooke can't look at her notes and see the doctor's stuff in that office. And that's where the difficulty is. If you go somewhere in any hospital or any area in Toronto, if they want to look at your X-ray, they just dial into the X-ray department. They can see your X-ray, see the results, see what's there. If you go to any lab around where you're in, dial in, boom, it should all be there. The doctors can look at your lab and it's all there. Simple, because it's a government run, it's regional sort of stuff. The problem is in the doctor's office. How do you immediately access that information? And that is a product of, because people would say, well, look, you've got Microsoft Office, it's all doc files, you just go and click that and you can see it. Why can't we just post it somewhere and everyone can see it?
Mhm.
Well, it's not quite that simple. And that is a big problem of how do you, unless you have one massive government controlled system that is all the same, then it's very difficult to have one central control of all the records, right? So that is a bigger challenge, and one that's in evolution, I guess.
Oh, and I guess just so that I think I'm understanding, but essentially, like, the doctor's offices sometimes they're owned by like private organizations. So like maybe they do things a little differently, each one of them. Is that what you're saying?
No, I wouldn't say that. It's not so much who owns them or how they're run. It's the software that they use to run their business, right? And I would expect there's probably still some doctors that have paper charts. You know, maybe not everybody's gone digital or electronic. I don't know. So the most of the clinics in our area are all electronic, right? So it depends, and it just depends, since there are different companies that produce these records. You know, there are different software companies. You know, there's Apple, there's Microsoft, there's Adobe, there's a bunch of different companies that do this. So they're not all compatible, they're not all easy to look at, and so on and so forth. So X-rays, no brainer, easy to do. Lab, no brainer, easy to do. If you're in a cancer clinic or you're doing any specialty work, or even hospital generated information like X-ray, like operative reports and stuff like that, that generally now is all online in a central hospital database that is really quite easy to access. The problem that you're looking at is the doctor's notes in the doctor's office, because there are many different systems, right?
Right. Well, maybe that's a problem that an entrepreneur can go ahead and look into try to solve. So,
Exactly. That's a good one. If you can solve that problem, you'd have a very successful business.
so hopefully a listener can hear this and be that solver. So, and going back to, I guess, your family life you were talking about earlier on, I'm just wondering how you're able to like balance. You know, you said you had a family practice, you're invested in a tech company, you had children, you had a wife, like you had so many of these like important relationships. And I'm just curious, like, was there, I mean, there maybe wasn't a balance, right? Like, but if you did balance it, how did you balance it? And if you weren't able to, maybe what are some things that you look back now that you would do differently?
Um, First of all, I'm still married to the same girl after 50 years, 45 years actually. So
Congrats. Yeah.
we did something right, eh? So we stayed together. I think that I always defined family time and time I took off. I just would take once a year. There was a month in the summer that was my time, and we did something as a family. Right? I really was quite emphatic that I had to have spend time with my family. It was very easy for me to be totally consumed in all the work I do. And neither of my two daughters, they're very successful people in their own professions, and they had no interest whatsoever of going into medicine.
Mhm.
So it's dad worked too hard, they said. And it's so it yeah, I was busy, I worked hard, and but I did define specific times for which it was family time.
So you had those boundaries that you were very strict to, because you cared about it. So it
Exactly.
seems as though as long as you care about it, the person will act upon it. So,
Yeah,
um,
you have to have those boundaries where you have to create that time. Now, we lived in a beautiful area with really great schools. The kids had a really great upbringing. There were lots of cool things to do. So it was a very nice environment to raise children, right? It was a lot of neat things, and they had a very good education. So it was a very happy experience,
okay.
and so it just worked out very well. And the other thing that happened was my parents moved out. When we left Edmonton, we finally moved here in Comox. They moved from Edmonton here, and they just lived down the street. And
Oh, wow.
they were very involved with the bringing up of the kids as well. We had a very nice family, and we got along well together. And they were very involved in the upbringing as well. So, um, yay for grandparents and seniors.
Yeah, no, like I find that so important. I was volunteering at a retirement home, and one individual, like she was a kindergarten teacher, and she came from England and she just settled here with her partner. But because she didn't have her parents here, she ended up deciding not to have kids because she found it was just so important to have that kind of structure around you to support you. Which I never really thought about before, but I'm starting to find that it definitely makes it seem much easier with that kind of support. So uh, that's a good tip, I guess, for people to make sure you guys have a strong family.
Set boundaries and keep family time, make family. It didn't come easy. Not the hardest thing wasn't doing medicine or running a company. It was budgeting family time. That was difficult. So it's not
Uh,
easy. It doesn't come naturally. You have to work darn hard at it.
right. Well, that's good to hear that you were able to make that time. So good for you, and congrats on your long marriage. That's definitely something I aspire to. If you've been enjoying the real, honest conversations from the entrepreneurs and creators on this podcast, you already know how valuable the right guidance can be. That's exactly why I launched Click Digital Empowerment, to help small business owners and solopreneurs take the next step with confidence. Right now, Click is offering 10 free business audits, followed by a recommendation report and 1 hour of free consultation. The report will include 3 recommendations on how you could improve your business, whether it be marketing or operations. It's a practical, no pressure way to sharpen your strategy and grow smarter. Head to our website, www.clicgempowered.ca, or check out the link in the description, which will bring you to the interest form to sign up to see if you'll be one of the top 10 chosen. Now back to the video. And I guess looking now a little bit further down the line, so you ended up retiring, and you have such an interesting life of retirement. Like I haven't met a lot of seniors, but recently in the past, like uh, just a handful of people I've found made like such cool use of their time after retirement, and you're definitely one of them. And maybe just speak a little bit about Tech for Senior, the project that you have been working on to build a community to help seniors learn tech, and how that has been, and yeah, how just a little bit about that would be
How
nice
it
to
can
hear.
be. Okay, so let's go back to when I was living in Arizona and living in Mesa, and we had when we were living in Mesa, the pandemic hit, and it was time to go back to Canada. Yeah, I think it was 2000, and they're closing the borders, and we had to leave and get out of there. And as I was driving back up through Seattle, up I-5 through Seattle, I don't know if you've probably never been on I-5. It's like 102 lanes wide freeway that there's a bazillion cars on it, and it is like a crazy place to go through Seattle. As we were driving through Seattle, there was nobody on the road. It was empty. There was no, what? That's crazy. And then we got to the Canadian border, and we went through customs. There was nobody. There was one guy at customs. It was all closed. There was nobody there. Got on the ferry to come over to Vancouver Island, which is usually packed. There was like maybe 10% full. It was like an apocalyptic craziness. So we got home, and I thought, now I'm sitting in my house. What am I going to do for, like, we didn't know how long this is going to go on for. Like, what am I going to do? I can't, just this isn't really conducive to my high energy level. So I thought, I was really worried about seniors in social isolation. I thought, what's going to happen to all these? Not only is everybody going to be socially isolated, but I thought seniors would be more devastated with this because they didn't really understand the technology that was available to keep them social, right?
Mhm.
So I thought about starting Tech for Senior, and um, I asked a lot of my friends, and they all said the same thing: good idea, but get someone to help you. So there was a fellow by the name of Huey Poplock, and I never Huey and I'm very big on Chromebooks, and I've been teaching Chromebooks and technology about Chromebooks and all that sort of stuff since they came out. And Huey in Florida did the same thing, and so we occasionally, our websites touch bases, and occasionally we had a, I'd say, oh, how you doing, and he'd say, how I'm okay, and so we knew who we were. So I sent Huey an email and said, I think of starting this Tech for Senior thing. Would you be interested? And he said, do you think? I said, do you think it was a good idea? And he said, it's only a good idea if I can be your partner. so
Okay.
so he and I uh, phoned up, we talked, and we got the idea going. And I said to Huey, do you know how to use Zoom? I don't think I've ever used Zoom before. I mean, this is sort of how early this was. And he said, yeah, I think we can figure out Zoom. So we then said, well, let's do a weekly Zoom show. So we started and got an idea, and we published it, and I got a Zoom, figured out how to use Zoom. And then we started the first show and it was, even before, we had a license for 100 people, and we started 15 minutes early, and within 5 minutes we had 100 people
Wow.
in the meeting. So it was a success right off the start. And we fumbled around for a while, and it wasn't too professional, but people loved it. They thought this was great. And then we sort of developed, there were, because of who we knew and the technologies in people that we were associated with, there was 3 or 4 more people that came along and said, hey, we want to be part of this program, and they joined as well. So we have a core group of probably 6 people who are producing, helping with the show, because it's a big deal now. We have over 1 million people have watched our videos. We have so we do our Monday show, uh, um, and we do that on it starts at 8:30 as sort of a warm-up period, and the actual show starts at 9. It runs for an hour and a half on Mondays, and we broadcast that out to YouTube, and we do that through Zoom. And that's and then then from that show, I spin off our educational series. We have a whole educational series. I take and break up the video, and we create three more shows out of that for educational purposes, and we have a whole educational series. And then on Thursday we do Tech for Senior Live, which is a review of the tech news of the week. And so we review, we have a Facebook page and we post all the articles we're going to talk about. And we have a group of, and we use StreamYard. We broadcast out through StreamYard, and we do it to YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So we broadcast out, and that's super successful. That's not, it's seniors. It's all us. You know, you got to remember, I'm the youngest person there. We've got some people that are really smart techie people that are 80 in their, you know, mid 80s, and they're right on top of all the latest technology. It's really interesting. And so we do that, and that keeps me really busy. I mean, and plus I'm creating, so I went from, so yes, I'm a broadcaster now, which I had to learn how to do. I had to learn how to make YouTube videos. I had to be a video creator. I had to go back and learn software to do video editing, to be competitive and to make really good videos. Well, that was great. I took a whole bunch of courses. I learned a whole bunch. And now I spend most of my life doing videos and making production videos, right? As well as running the show and that sort of thing. So I'm back to where I was 20 years ago, but I'm having a lot of fun, and I don't get paid for it. It's all, but what else am I going to do? I mean, I'm just having so much fun with it. I meet great people. I meet people like you. I get lots of interviews. It's just, I couldn't be having more fun, right? And so that's the greatest thing.
And since you're like, you've essentially built a community, and you're very active in the community, do you find that it still fills the cup of like social interaction that you need? Because I know some seniors, maybe they can't drive to a certain place, or they can't meet at the local senior center. Do you find that just being like having that virtual community is essentially pretty good? I know you still have like probably people in your neighborhood, but how do you find that aspect?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess there's some good things and some things that I guess we could do better. Our community is a social community on online. It's virtual, right? It's virtual. So we don't actually go out to nursing home. We don't actually do that. We produce the content. In other words, we've got over 2,000 videos out now on our YouTube site. We produce a lot of content that we expect other people who are seeing people in different seniors in different walks of life to be able to take our videos and use them for educational purposes. I think that's so we're not actually going out to seniors' homes and spreading the word and that sort of thing. We're creating the content, and that's probably got to be done by somebody else. So that's really where we are, and I think that we're doing a good job of that. Could we do better? Probably. But at the end of the day, there's only so many hours in the day to do. Remember, family time, you still got to have family time. So you have to set boundaries. But if I wanted to improve Tech for Senior, I think advertising more and getting more word out for what we're doing. I constantly get people saying, I just discovered you. This is 6 years. We're going into our 6th season. And, and I constantly get people saying, where have you been for the last 5 years? Social isolation still is one of the founding principles of Tech for Senior. And I don't know if you remember there was a picture that they showed often in the picture is one of a senior. It's a husband, wife with two children standing in front of a senior center looking up. And in the window, you can see grandma in a rocking chair looking down at them with a tear coming down her eyes because she hasn't had any interaction with them for 6 months, right? And that's social isolation. Now, you understand it, and I understand it, that I can pick up an iPhone or an Android phone, and with one button, I can talk to Brooke. Not only can I talk to Brooke, but I can see you, and it's free. It's free. No matter where you are in the whole world, it's free. And I can do the same thing with an Android phone as well. So I guess, so why would somebody be in that situation where they can't talk to their loved ones, right? And it's because they don't have the technology. They don't understand it. So one of the things that we talk about a lot at Tech for Senior is, in order to prevent social isolation as a senior, you need to understand what your family uses as technology. So for example, Brooke, if your parents all use Apple phones, they use everything Apple, nobody's heard of Android, and you want to talk to your parents, what are you going to do? You're going to get an iPhone, right?
Right.
Because everybody, so you got to be on the page. And so seniors, I think, need to, early on, before they, because as we're getting older, life is going to change. You have to be prepared for change. They need to get the right type of communication going between their families. So when they do end up in situations, they don't have the social isolation that they have. Because today, with current modern technology we have, even WhatsApp, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, it's free. It's free all over the world. You can talk all day, and there is no reason why you shouldn't be doing it. And it's not difficult, because you can program it so it's just one button on the phone. You just hit that button, and you can talk to your kids, right? So, or grandkids. So they need to. So that's the message that we try. We talk a lot at Tech for Senior about technology and social isolation and how to do that. Now, the people that come and watch the show all the time have figured all that out, right? It's generally the same group that comes all the time, which it's not all those people that watch our videos. That's for sure. But we're hoping the word gets out, and it is. I mean, there are, it should be. I think that if I was wanting to do something in a senior center, it would be to make sure they all understood the technology and all I don't know how many of them would have a cell phone. Maybe some of them do, some of them don't. I don't know. I mean, there obviously gets to a stage where you just can't, I guess mentally, there's just no way you understand how to hold it or work it or anything like that. But I would think most people should be able to figure out that if you push a button, you talk to someone. That's sort of cool, eh? Or I don't know. Have you used Gemini?
I prefer like ChatGPT to ask questions for AI.
Okay.
But yeah,
well, all right.
it.
So do you have a Miss A?
A what?
Miss, I don't want to say the word because it's going to set off everybody's device. Amazon, a Miss A product?
Oh, no.
Alexa?
No.
Okay. So anyway, so Miss A devices are great because they can talk to seniors all day long. You can sit and talk to a Miss A device, and it'll talk to you back and forth. Gemini, I don't know if you use Gemini Live, but Gemini Live is conversational AI, and it'll talk to you like like we could have this conversation with Gemini A. You wouldn't know it's not me, right? It's that good, right?
That's true. Yeah.
It's that good. So there are lots of things. So for seniors to sit there and be isolated or not stimulated is all different now. And with AI and conversational AI, you could talk and talk and talk.
Yeah, what I found after like working with a few seniors is they just have a very a large fear of tech in general because they don't want to accidentally like press the wrong thing and have all their money taken away or whatnot. So um I don't know what have you worked with seniors on that kind of level, and what do you see as their biggest challenge? Do you attract those people at Tech for Senior? Is that kind
Oh
of
yeah,
like they've already
yeah,
gotten
yeah.
over that?
Yeah, we certainly do, and that's part of our training. That we do. We have really try to teach people how to stay safe. I guess there's sort of two groups of people. I guess it depends now. Seniors coming in now to seniors care now should be pretty versed in technology. I mean, we've had pretty incredible technology for a long time, and if you're reaching care age now and you have never had a cell phone and you don't know how a cell phone works, you are a very unusual. I think you're a very unusual individual, right? In other words, that person's going to be a big challenge to stay connected. But most people, if a couple of years from now, if I have to go into aged care, Are you kidding? I have 5 computers here. I'm sitting in front of 5 computers. I've got a cell phone. I've got an iPad. I've got all this stuff. I'm not going to be without communication, right?
Right. So you're definitely ahead of the curve there, and I can already imagine if you were to go into some type of a retirement home, you'd probably be hosting workshops every week for them. So um, that's good that you have that mindset to learn. I think as people get older, I've heard at least that um, it's harder to learn, but maybe it's like a muscle, like because you're doing it a lot so much right now, you've already had that muscle and it's quite a big muscle, so it's probably
Right.
maybe going to be easier for you.
Right.
Um, so that's
And I think there's a fear of I think seniors have a fear that they're going to do something wrong or push a button or do
yeah.
something and lose all their money or something terrible is going to happen, right? And I
Mhm.
think I think from a realistic point of view, there are systems that can be put in place where that fear can be alleviated, right? And it depends on if their primary goal is to use that device as a communication tool for their loved ones, then you can set up the security on it so that it's just you just push a button and that button takes you dials the other person's iPhone, or whatever, or whatever you're going to be using, and that's perfectly safe, and they can talk. Like, just give you an example. One of my daughters lives in Adelaide, Australia. Now, do you know how far it is from Comox to Adelaide, Australia? It's like it's like a 26-hour airplane with all the transfers because we've done it so
Oh,
many times. 26 hours, okay?
right.
That's one daughter. My other daughter lives in Africa. Now, that
Mhm.
she lives in Addis Ababa. Now, that's a long way away too. That's even longer. But we talk to them every day. We talk to them, we communicate. We use WhatsApp a lot. They're into WhatsApp, and all my kids they're all Apple. Like, they have never heard of an Android thing. It
Oh,
is totally, totally 100% Apple. So, guess what?
you
I
have an Apple?
have no I have an iPad.
You have an iPad.
I have an
Okay.
iPad. What do I use the iPad for? Talking to the kids, right? so so we talk to them every day.
And you
And
mentioned last time you had bought this photo kind of frame that electronically shares photos. Do you still use that or?
well, I got a bunch of them. The company's called Nixplay, Nixplay, and it's a digital frame. And the thing that's cool about this is that you, it allows me to and all the kids have digital frame, the same company, right? And so it's very easy for me to send a picture to the kids' digital frame. So if I want to say, hey, here's a picture of, just a minute, hold on, I want to take a pic. That's what I got to do today. Just a minute, smile, Brooke. I want to
Oh.
take a picture of you. There we go. I got to take a picture of smile. There we go. Excellent. I'm gonna say, hey, I was talking to Brooke today on a podcast, and they'll get that. It's gone out now, and it's going right to Adelaide, and it's going onto their digital frame and the digital frame in Addis now, and it's super cool.
I guess like you're very tech savvy, but as somebody who's not like a senior who's not, um, how do you think their children, maybe their grandchildren, can help bridge that digital divide? Maybe like a simple step that they can do, like that might be the most impactful.
Talk to them.
Okay.
Talk to them. you know, say, there has to be a willingness on both parts, right? Talk to them and say, let's and find out what they're using to talk. For example, if I sent my daughters an email, they would never answer me. They don't look at email. Nobody looks at email, right? It's all messaging and fast, and basically WhatsApp is the current thing that they're using. And if I send a message on WhatsApp, they would see it within seconds. Both daughters, both parts of the world, they're into WhatsApp. So guess what? I use WhatsApp. So you have to
Right.
figure out what your family's using to stay connected, but talk to them. You need to say, as a senior, you need to say, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to talk to you more often." And they'd say, "Well, gee, let's set up a Zoom meeting once a month. Okay. Well, that'll never happen. If they're Apple people, what you want to do is say, okay, let's figure out your family all uses iPhones, and then you need to get an iPhone, and then just connect with them. You can use either FaceTime, or you can use whatever system they're using, and you can just connect with them and talk to them. And we
That's
do
the
it every
first
day.
step. Yep.
We do it every day. We've always done that with the kids. We actually use now. I don't. I guess I did a whole video about this, but they don't make this anymore. But Facebook made a very interesting product. It was called the Portal TV. Have you ever heard of that? The
No.
Portal TV. If you do a Google search on Portal, Portal TV, it was a great product, and it's a product that sat above the TV just like a webcam, but you plugged it in the back of the TV, and it provided audio and microphone. It had an 8 array of microphones and a bunch of cameras on it, and we have that clipped to our TV in the kitchen where we spend most of our time, and the kids always phone on that. And as we're cooking or having dinner, we talk to them away, and it's just part of the whole communication thing. And that's where we do most of our communicating, because it's right within our environment. Now, sadly, they don't make it anymore, and it's gone. So it's not a product that you can buy, but it really was a cool idea, and I hope someone comes up with something similar in the future.
I guess like something like that, it's like a camera in your intimate space. Like, even myself, I'm sometimes like scared. Like, what if someone's like hacked into my camera watching me? Like, what would you tell somebody who's maybe skeptical of that? I know, like, what's your perspective? Let's first hear that,
Well,
if you are.
all the cameras now, I think every single webcam and everyone all have a shutter on it, right? You just slide the
Yep.
shutter over, and so it has a shutter on it. You just close the shutter if you're worried about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big issue. I know that all the webcams I've bought lately, they all just have a slider that slide over the surface.
Yeah, you're talking about that now, but I'm just realizing my webcam doesn't have that. So I just
Oh,
let
really?
it. Yeah, that's so weird. I bought it like 2 years ago, but I don't see a shutter, so maybe I should consider one myself. But that's actually a good way to still use the technology, and still have an option at least to like basically not let it interfere with your personal life. So that's a good thing to consider for some seniors, definitely if they're skeptical. And I was interested because I checked out the YouTube channel, Tech for Senior, and I saw like a video on AI, why you shouldn't ask AI for medical advice. And since you are somebody with a medical background, I think some of the listeners are probably gonna trust what you're saying more than somebody else who's not. Um, what would you say in terms of uh, that, like an overall like 1 minute summary, I guess, of that video? Because I did watch it, but just for the listeners to kind of get a quick snippet of that.
Sure. I just let you know that I am making a series now. I've got 4 in the series. I'm working on the 5th one, on AI for people over the age of 50, and so the first one was setting up AI. The second one was prompts. The third one was be careful on medical advice. The last one that I just released was being productive, and there's going to be a whole series, right? So,
Okay.
and if you go to that video in the description, you'll see the link to the playlist. And as I add them, I'll just add them to the series, and I hope I should have in about another month all of them made, and that will be a whole package for seniors over the age of 50 that want to get started with AI. So the question is be careful. If you're sick or you want information, get a healthcare professional. Ask someone that knows what they're talking about. AI is fine, and you can certainly get some broad information about it. But the problem is that AI gleans its database from the internet, right? And and it's not always true. Can you
Fake
believe that?
news.
Can you
Yeah.
really believe that? It's not true. Good example would be good example. Suppose you say, should I get vaccinated or not? And you want to search the internet, and you say, and you type in, should I get vaccinated or not? Or you ask AI that question. It's going to go out and it's going to look at all the data on that, not data. It's going to look on all the stuff that's published in the world on vaccinations. Now, you may find that there's a 70% of that information might be not research data related. It's all people's opinions, right, that don't really know what they're talking about. And so that's going to be overwhelmed with just general garbage that's out there. And the medical, that 30% that is true information that you need to know, will get muddied, and it will give you a very jaundiced or biased view, which is not truly related to what the issues are. So that's the first thing. And the other thing is, if it doesn't know the answer, it makes it up. Have you ever had that happen? I had that,
Yeah.
I have that happen all the time when I'm writing articles. I get AI to help me. And the worst thing, it looks like a great article. I've got all the stuff done. And I think, no, just a minute. That doesn't they made it up. It's not true. So you got to be really careful with that. And so when you go to ask medical information or medical advice, that's the problem you have. There's no verification. And what happens if you suppose you asked AI, how much Tylenol should I give my 2-year-old child? And Gemini tells you should give 2 bottles of liquid Tylenol to your child. And you think, gee, that's rather odd, but it's AI, it's got to be correct. And you give 2 bottles of Tylenol to your child, and he gets really sick, and you have to take him to the hospital. And there's no balance or checks on that, right? So you have to be really careful.
Exactly. Like there's no one, like who are you going to essentially sue? It's not Tylenol's back
It,
page.
it,
It's not AI. Like,
no, and then there's the remorse if you do. There's the remorse if you do that, and there's, of course, you've done it yourself, and you have to feel, well, it's a lot on your shoulders, right?
right.
So you have to be careful with that as well. So my advice is if you're sick, get some professional help. And that's my advice on that.
Just looking ahead at Tech for Senior, are there any like exciting plans that are in store? I know you talked about the series of the YouTube videos, but anything else that you have planned that maybe people can look out for?
um Plans for us. Well, we're starting season 6 next month. We'll be starting in March. I think 17th is season 6, and we're changing the format of the program a little bit. So we've got some new people coming on board, a few different ideas there. We have a newsletter I publish twice a week, and you can www.techforsenior.com. You can go there and sign up for it. I think you get the newsletter, don't you, Brooke?
I
Yeah.
do, yeah.
Yeah, and so you'll see, you sort of understand what's in there, and so that's going to change a little bit as we move forward. And aside from that, we've been. The other thing that happened is, it costs money to do this, right? We've talked a little bit about that before. So we decided to. Because all the stuff we do, there's licensing fees and fees and fees and
Mhm.
fees. It goes on and on and on. So it was sort of cool. So when Huey and I went through the first year, we thought, gee, how are we going to fund this? And there's all sorts of different things you can do. There's Patreon, there's Google memberships, there's all sorts of things you can do. So we just thought we would just ask our viewers, hey, can you help us with some money? And we asked, and we got our budget in the first 3 weeks. They all donated. So
Wow.
each year we just go out and we say, hey, this is what we need, and there's people write checks, and no, not write checks. They just send it all in, and so that's worked out really well. So the reason I'm mentioning this is that we are fully funded for season 6, so we have
Okay.
no problem financially, and so season 6 is going to go ahead, and we're going to just keep doing the great work we're doing. I don't see any change. We'll do our Monday show It should basically, we're going to change the format a little bit, but we'll continue with that. And then we will continue with our Thursday show. We're sort of continually hope to be discovered, right? We're hoping that someone's going to come along and say, "Oh my gosh, you guys are great." I mean, we get that all the time, but we don't get anything like a national exposure or something just to raise it up to the next level. And I guess if that never happens, it doesn't really break my heart. I'm having so much fun doing what I'm doing. That's life, right? But if it does happen, that's okay too.
Hopefully this podcast will help with that a little bit,
Yeah.
and just spread the word a bit. And my grandparents, unfortunately, their first language isn't English, so I would totally recommend it to them. And whoever's listening, I have checked out some of the live shows that you guys do on Facebook and the YouTube videos, and I think it's really good content. So I would even recommend it to others to share it to their grandparents, to join that kind of community where everybody is learning together and having the same mindset. So, yeah, they definitely have my word on that.
Well, I got to tell you a good story. So,
Okay.
Bill James is one of the regulars on our show. He's lives in Oklahoma, and he was busy, and he sent me an email the other day and said, "I can't make the show on Thursday. I'm going to France for 2 weeks." And I thought, really? Okay, that's news. And so anyway, I thought, I'm going to send them back the email, but I'm going to send it in French. So in Gmail, I typed out in English, because I don't speak French. I typed out a half a page saying, "Enjoy the wine, enjoy this, enjoy that, da 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 da." And in Google, in Gmail, there's a translate feature. So I just translate to French. Boom, it's in French. Hit the button and send it off to Bill, right? Well, Bill's a techie guy too. He knows all this. So he answered me in French. So he sent me back a letter this morning, and he sent it back in French. And I thought, oh. So I just hit the translate to English, and boom, there it was in English. So with your parents, if they need to send, you can easily. Gmail is just so easy, right?
That's a good point. Yeah. I haven't thought of that. I didn't even know that was a feature, so I might actually look into that myself.
That's going to be my next video. I had a great idea this morning when I was thinking about coming on the podcast. I thought I'd tell that story, and I thought, that's a great video. And so I think I'm going to make a video about that.
Well, for sure. I'm subscribed, so I can't wait to see that when it comes out. But wrapping up here, because we just have a few minutes, I kind of wanted to end this off as like an advice section. But essentially, if you could go back in time and give your younger self advice, what would it be?
Oh boy. Don't change anything. I'm really glad the big decision in life, the biggest decision I made in life, the hardest decision, was retiring at age 55. And I had a huge practice, a medical practice. I had a business going. I had a lot of things in my life. And it was a huge decision, and one that I wasn't sure if it was the correct one. But looking back now, it was absolutely the right decision to make. And I've never looked back, and I never, as you get older and older and older, you can't make more time, right? So I don't ever look back and wish that I'd worked longer or I'd stayed in medicine. A lot of people said, "Oh, he's only 55 and he's retiring." But I'd worked really hard all my life, and I was happy to do that, and I've never looked back. So I think that I would really recommend, particularly for seniors, if you can, retire early. I think if you have other interests you're interested in, go with it, and I think you'll be much happier.
Well, that's really good advice, and I'm actually going to use that for myself. Just a few years early, but I think, yeah, your insights on this episode, I think, are really helpful for just anybody. It could be somebody who is a senior, but even for somebody like myself in my 20s, I definitely found this really like enriching, I guess. It's kind of like a little wisdom session for me, for sure. So your journey, I'm sure, has inspired many others. So I thank you for giving us your hour to kind of dive into your life a bit. and to get some of the key takeaways. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode. And yeah, we'll see you maybe in another one.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Yes, we should come back. We should do another one on a different technology, maybe. Lots of things we can do, and I'm happy to come back.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you.